The chamber was built to impress gods. A cathedral of stone and gold, with pillars tall enough to make even the bravest soldier feel small. Hundreds of candles burned without smoke. Their light shivered across polished marble, and banners stitched with a single promise: salvation. At the center of the hall, an enormous circle of silver had been carved into the floor. Runes threaded through it like veins. Priests stood shoulder to shoulder along its edge, chanting in voices that blurred into one long trembling note. Above them, the air was folding, not moving, folding, as if the world itself had been forced to bend around an idea. The king watched from a raised dais, hands clasped behind his back, face set into the expression of someone who could not afford doubt. Behind him, nobles filled the benches like carrion birds dressed in silk. Knights lined the walls, armor gleaming, spears upright, unmoving, and between them all stood the High Mage. Arveth did not look excited. Arveth looked clinical, like a surgeon, awaiting a routine cut. The chant reached a pitch that made teeth ache. The runes flared. The circle turned into a wound of white light. And then 5 figures dropped onto the marble, as if the air had spat them out. The hall went silent in an instant. A silence so complete, even the flames seemed to pause. The 5 summoned stood in a staggered line, breathing hard, disoriented, staring up at a room that did not belong to any life they remembered. 4 of them reacted like people who had at least heard stories. They froze. They took in the guards, the banners, the blades. The 5th, Kael, did not move at all, not because he understood, because the shock had emptied him. Kael's eyes tracked the ceiling first. Instinct, escape routes, height, distance. And the faces, hundreds of them. A sea of expectation, a sea of hunger. The king stepped forward, voice carrying without effort. "Heroes," the king said. "You have been chosen." The word chosen landed with weight, as if it was meant to be a gift. Kael's mouth was dry. The air smelled of incense and metal. Arveth lifted his staff. A shard of crystal sat at its peak, pale and cold, catching candlelight as if it didn't know warmth. "Begin the appraisal," Arveth said, without looking at the 5 people like they were people. The crystal flared. A ripple swept over the summoned, like an invisible hand passing through them. One by one, the others reacted. The first, tall, broad-shouldered, gasped as light formed around his torso in a rectangular frame, hovering like glass. Symbols appeared across it in clean lines, shifting like ink on water. The nobles murmured. The knights straightened. The second, shorter, sharp-eyed, stared as the same kind of panel appeared. The third laughed once, breathless, disbelief turning into excitement. Even the 4th, who looked like the kind of person who never trusted anything, blinked and swallowed as the panel hovered before him. 4 panels, 4 confirmations. Kael waited. Nothing appeared. For a moment, Kael thought the light had missed. Then Arveth frowned. He turned his staff slightly, as if adjusting angle would fix faulty measurement. The crystal pulsed again. Brighter. The ripple passed through Kael. Still nothing. Arveth lowered the staff with a small, controlled movement, the kind of movement a person makes when disappointment is inconvenient. The hall began to whisper, not loud enough for one voice to be identified, loud enough to become a living thing. Arveth stepped closer to the summoned line. He studied Kael, the way an apothecary studies spoiled stock. No response, Arveth said. Kael's throat tightened. The king's expression shifted. Not rage, not surprise. Calculation. What does that mean? The king asked. Arveth's eyes stayed on Kael. It means this one has no class, Arveth said. No affinity, no measurable mana capacity. Kael felt the room tilt. It wasn't the words. It was the tone. There was no pity in it, no caution, just a verdict. One of the nobles laughed softly, quickly muffled. The summoned heroes glanced at Kael, and in their eyes was something worse than disgust, relief, because it wasn't them. Arveth lifted his staff again, and the 4 panels hovering around the others sharpened, brightened, filled with additional lines. The first hero's panel flashed with an emblem like a blade. Another displayed a shield. Another, fire. Another, lightning. The hall began to applaud. Not for the heroes, for the idea that the ritual had worked. Kael stood in the middle of it, invisible. The king raised a hand. The applause died. Kael felt every gaze turn back. The king took a single step toward him. Up close. The king looked older than the distance had suggested. Not weak, just worn. "Then can you fight?" the king asked. Kael opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth rose like bile. Kael had no idea where he was. No idea what rules governed this world. No idea how to swing a sword in armor. How to cast spells. How to survive if this place expected miracles. Kael's silence stretched long enough to become an answer. Arveth spoke again, softly, as if offering a solution. "This one is defective," Arveth said. The word defective did not belong to living things. It belonged to objects. Kael's hands curled. A knight's gauntlet creaked. The king's gaze flicked to Arveth. "Defective," the king repeated, tasting the word like it might poison the tongue. Arveth's expression did not change. "We summoned 5 to secure our chances," Arveth said. 4 is acceptable." The nobles murmured again. This time, approval. Kael felt the bottom drop out of the moment. Not because he feared death, because he understood. Suddenly, he did not matter here. The king looked out at the hall, the court, the knights, the priests, an entire kingdom, holding its breath. And then the king turned back. "We cannot allow doubt," he said. Kael's pulse spiked. Then came the part that would define everything. The king did not order execution. He did not order imprisonment. He did not order exile in the human sense. He simply said, "Take him to the outer gate." Kael's head snapped up. Outer gate. The words meant nothing, but the way the knights reacted meant everything. 2 of them all moved instantly, efficient, practiced, like they dragged people before. Kael's body tried to resist and found itself already pinned by armor and strength. A grip on his arm, a grip on his shoulder. The marble floor slid beneath his feet as he was pulled forward. The other 4 heroes watched. One looked uncomfortable. One looked away. One looked relieved. One looked almost pleased. Kael's gaze caught Arveth's. Arveth's eyes were empty. Not hatred, not contempt, simply the absence of concern. As Kael was dragged from the hall, the chanting resumed behind him, as if the ritual had not been interrupted, as if he had never existed. The corridors beyond the summoning hall were colder. The air tasted like damp stone. Torches lined the walls, their flames too small for how thick the shadows were. The knights did not speak. Kael did not ask questions. He listened instead. Boots, armor joints, breath through metal, and underneath it, distant sounds that did not belong inside a castle. Low, far-off rumbles. A faint howl that might have been wind or something else. They reached a passage wide enough for wagons, sloping downward toward a set of doors reinforced with iron. The outer gate, Kael could feel it before seeing it. The pressure of it, the sense of separation. The doors opened with a grinding groan, and cold air spilled in like a living thing. Beyond the gate was not farmland, not roads, not a border with watchtowers. Beyond the gate was a wall of fog and twisted silhouettes of trees that looked like they had learned cruelty from watching men. A waste of dark forest and jagged stone. The monster territory. Kael's stomach tightened, as if the body recognized danger before the mind could label it. The knights stopped at the threshold. One of them finally spoke. Voice flat. Walk. Kael's feet did not move. The knight's grip tightened. A shove. Kael stumbled forward. Another shove. And then Kael was across the line. The air changed instantly. Not just colder, heavier, as if the world itself had thicker skin here. Behind him, the gate began to close. Kael turned. The knights stood in the doorway, faces hidden behind helmets. No malice in their posture, only duty. The iron doors slammed shut. The sound echoed through the trees, like a warning bell. Silence followed. A deeper silence than the one in the hall. This silence did not feel sacred. This silence felt like a tension. Kael stood alone in the fog, with nothing in his hands. No weapon, no supplies, no direction. The forest breathed. Somewhere far off, something answered. A howl. Slow, low, as if a throat had learned the sound. Over centuries, Kael's heart hammered once, hard enough to shake his ribs. He looked down at his hands, then up at the fog, then forward, one step, another. The ground was uneven, strewn with roots like traps. Kael moved carefully, listening for anything that didn't belong. The fog thinned for a moment, and Kael caught sight of something ahead. A bone. Not animal. Too long. Too thick. Half buried in mud. Like the forest was eating whatever came here. Kael stopped. A faint sound came from behind. Not footsteps. Not breath. A soft, wet shift. Like something heavy, adjusting its weight in the dark. Kael turned slowly. Nothing visible. Only fog and crooked trees. But Kael could feel it. Eyes. Not human. Watching. His throat tightened. The body prepared to run. Then something happened. Something that had not happened in the hall. A sensation bloomed in Kael's chest. Not pain. Not warmth. A pressure. As if something had been asleep and was now opening one eye. Kael froze. Breath caught. The pressure spread through his ribs, through his spine, down his arms. The world sharpened. Edges became clearer. The fog seemed thinner. Not because it moved, but because Kael's eyes changed how they drank light. His heartbeat slowed. Not because fear vanished, because the body decided panic was wasteful. And in the silence of that decision, a whisper formed inside Kael's mind. Not a voice from outside, a voice from within. Ancient, flat, certain. Adaptation initiated. Kael stood perfectly still, listening to the words echo inside bone and blood. Somewhere in the fog, the unseen watcher moved again, closer, and Kael, still unarmed, still alone, took a breath that sounded calm. Then Kael stepped forward, into the monster territory. End of episode 1. If you enjoy Deep stories, complex characters, and cinematic worlds, from dark fantasy to sci-fi to psychological drama and survival storytelling. Consider supporting this project. You can like the episode, subscribe to the channel, or share it with someone who loves immersive stories. New episodes and new series are released regularly. Thank you for watching, and thank you for walking this world with me.